Appreciate everyone on the line talking Nebraska football as we do every Tuesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 Central. Venmo, PayPal, Cash App. If you're contributing directly to Nebraska, just please make note of that. D-Rock Irish brings up something that hit social media this week and gained a lot of attention as Oklahoma came out officially and stated that they were not pleased with the decision that their broadcast partner Fox made in targeting and scheduling that Oklahoma-Nebraska game for noon Eastern, which turns out to be an 11 o'clock Central local time kickoff for both teams right there. So, Greg, I'll lead off with you just in regards to your thoughts about, I guess, first of all, the game time, which TV controls everything. I'll make my point at the end. I won't continue. So we'll go with you on that one.
Well, I wish I could say I was surprised. I mean, we've gotten really used to those 11 a.m. kickoffs around here the last couple of years. Yeah. But, you know, yeah, I think the most surprising thing is that to see Oklahoma straight from their Twitter account, you know, not happy with that. And obviously nobody in Nebraska is happy with that either, because you're talking about one of the greatest rivalries in college football, and it's the 100th anniversary, or and it's going to be on. I mean, people out on the West Coast are still going to be in bed when this game starts. I think it's ridiculous. Now, I don't know what other games are on the schedule that week, but I'm sure there's some pretty big ones. But yeah, I mean, TV controls everything. It's just it's bizarre that that rivalry doesn't mean much anymore, apparently, to anybody outside of the Nebraska and Oklahoma fan bases. I don't know. But it's just, I think Nebraska fans are starting to get fed up with the continuous slaps in the face. The baseball team just unbelievably is ranked, 18th in the country, and they end up getting pretty much the 32nd seed in the NCAA tournament. You got to go play the number 1 seed, Arkansas. Yeah, it's just I don't know. It's just bizarre that that this continually seems like it happens to Nebraska in every sport across the board.
Yeah, I mean, it sure would have been nice to see them play at night and play in prime time. I think it's one of the classic matchups in all of college football. I mean, if you're a college football fan, I think you should watch the game. There's other games that I always make sure I tune into just because I'm a fan of the sport and college and everything. So it was disappointing, and I'm not surprised by it. And then thinking more about Oklahoma's comments too, it kind of shocked me a little bit, like Greg said, that they posted that out there publicly on their Twitter. But, Oklahoma they're trying to they're making a run for the national championship this year. They want to be in the playoff. They got Rattler, Heisman front runner, and they're going to take every shot that they can to prove that they belong, to the committee every single week. And the Nebraska game is definitely one of them where they're going to want to, perform really well. And, they've wanted it in prime time. So, looking at it in that way, I guess I understand where they were coming from. But, yeah, it's disappointing. I'm super pumped for the game, and I hope Nebraska competes.
And there has been, just to add on there, that there has been no public statement from Nebraska on this. So, and I don't expect them to say anything.
Right.
So all the various ESPN networks / ABC, they've got a slice of every conference. They broadcast all the games from all the conferences. Not all the games, but they represent all the conferences. With Fox, it's the Big Ten, the Big 12, and the Pac-12. They don't have the SEC or the ACC. And then they go, I'm not going to try to even go through it, and I think it changes with each I know that it changes with each contract, but in regards to the pecking order, I think it's pretty easy to see, for example, that up until 2017, that the Ohio State-Michigan game, which is going to be one of the first ones taken off the board by the networks, was an ABC first. ABC got its first selection. They were almost always taking that game. That's why it was on ABC every year for a zillion years through 2016. As soon as Fox got the contract and wrestled away that number one pick in 2017, well, the Ohio State Michigan game's been on Fox every year, 2017, 18, 19. And that continues through whenever. So we know that the game, despite upsetting some people that want to get up and watch the game, and also we're thinking, like Greg mentioned, about what kind of national exposure is this game going to get across the board, especially on the West Coast. It's going to be marginalized, compromised to a certain extent. At least it's the number one selection of the day from Fox, because that has become their window because of ESPN and ABC's dominance in the 3:30 time slot, and especially in prime time, that they've tried to pump up that particular window, even to the point where the Pac-12 was just wanting eyeballs on its best game so much that when they finally decided to play, and of course they were the last conference to the field last year, threw out their best game of the week in week one for them, Arizona State USC, for noon Eastern, meaning 9 a.m. in Los Angeles. For now, this happened last year after the pandemic. So Herm Edwards and Clay Helton were saying, we've got a wake up call at 4:30 in the morning. You know, it's one thing for all of us if somebody says 9 o'clock in the morning, you're going to have to go run errands. Okay, well, maybe you don't like that. You'd rather sleep in a little bit, but to have to run a 4:3 and hit somebody full on at 9 o'clock in the morning, that's a whole other deal. Goodness gracious. That's a lot to ask those guys.
Crazy. Why even go to bed if that's going on that night?
To a certain extent, yeah. So at noon, a few of these games, it's not been designated where they're going to be, but you would think Michigan State, Miami, they're scheduled for noon. They're going to be on a major network somewhere, ESPN2 at the least.
Right.
So that one's not scheduled. But again, Oklahoma, Nebraska, of course, on Fox. West Virginia, Virginia Tech's a noon game at FS1. Michigan, Northern Illinois, not a big deal on the Big Ten Network. And that's it for the noon windows. So you got to figure they're slotting Michigan State, Miami. Maybe that sounds like an ESPN game or an ABC game. And maybe Indiana, Cincinnati's the other one that does not have a network designation. It seems like ESPN and ABC are figuring out where Michigan State, Miami's going to go, and Indiana, Cincinnati. But that's going to be ESPN/ABC is what it looks like. Now, Fox could have put the game at 4, but they instead are going to go with
baseball game.
Oh, the baseball game's at 4. Well, no, they've got, I think the baseball game's late. Okay. They're going with USC and Washington State at 3:30. Ah. So they'd rather go USC, Washington State at 3:30. That's not much of a game. Shouldn't be. And then, like Chris says, yeah, I've already heard, yeah, the baseball takes over on Fox late night. All right. Interesting.
Well, you know that, I mean, you hit the nail on the head, too, is that, you know, that game was always an ABC 2:30 kickoff game. Keith Jackson would be calling that game year in and year out. But, yeah, since the big television big happy family took over and threw all that money everywhere, that yeah, we all get deprived of things that we were used to when we were growing up.
Yeah, it would be interesting to know what the pecking order was this particular week. ABC's taking Auburn, Penn State in prime time. That might have been the number one selection of the week. Maybe, or maybe Fox had it. They just wanted to put Oklahoma, Nebraska at noon.
Well, you know, they're pushing their big noon Saturday, so yeah.
The only issue I had with it is that basically, whether you're Oklahoma or whomever you are, your conference has signed a contract with the networks, and you know what the deal is. Yep. You signed the contract, and you know what their rights are. They're not stepping outside their rights. So that's what the deal is.
Yep.
All right. Interesting.
Yep.
I think they open up on the big noon with Illinois too. I think in week 0.
Yeah, that's. I think it's like a 3 o'clock game actually.
Yeah.
It's one of those two.
Yeah, I think they did put that early.
Yeah, maybe they did.
I think it's the earlier one.
Wait a minute, that can't be right. Well, it's not at noon according to ESPN. If this schedule is correct, it says it says 1 o'clock.
Oh, 1 o'clock. Okay,
1 o'clock on Fox, because there's hardly anybody playing that week. There's really only 2 Power 5 games that week. UCLA's playing.
I believe it's a noon Central Time kickoff. So
yes. There you go.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and then it's UCLA and Hawaii, I think, play.
Yeah, they're on ESPN at 3:30.